What's up, everybody? It's JT Sportsman at you guys with another video. In this video, I'm here with my Pittsburgh Steelers 7th round 2020 mock draft. I'm going to be giving my mock draft for who the Steelers should select and this year's upcoming NFL draft. And I'm going to be doing this for all 32 NFL teams. So if you are a fan of the NFL or football in general, make sure that you like the video and subscribe to the channel because I upload NFL videos and college football videos daily. So for the Pittsburgh Steelers, this is a roster that is one of the most complete rosters in the NFL, top to bottom. They don't really have a lot of holes. The only question marks really is at that offensive guard position. Who's going to end up replacing Ramon Foster, and probably on the defensive line, who's going to end up replacing Javon Hargrave, who left the Steelers in free agency. So for the Steelers, I mean, this is a roster that is built to win now. So basically in the 2020 NFL draft, basically what the Steelers have to do is they're basically drafting for added depth and also young guys who they can bring in and develop when some of the older guys get ready to retire. So the Steelers don't have a first round pick. So their first pick of this year's draft, second round, 49th overall, having selected a halfback out of Ohio State, J.K. Dobbins. Now, the reason why I really like J.K. Dobbins as a fit for the Steelers is because this is a really good one-cut halfback. As soon as he puts his foot in the dirt, he's gone. Not a lot of people are going to catch him. He also has good balance and good upper body strength as well. It's very hard to bring him down on the initial tackle as well. So he bounces off a lot of tackles. He's like a pinball machine. And for the Steelers, James Conner is a solid halfback when he's able to stay healthy. But last year, he really missed a lot of key games for the Steelers last season. So the Steelers should look to replace him in the draft. And if not replace him because he is a free agent, I think he's a free agent next season or the season after. And Pittsburgh's cap situation was kind of tough to start out the offseason. They had to renegotiate a couple of contracts or rework a couple of contracts. So I'm pretty sure that's going to have a little bit of impact on the Steelers' future salary cap situation for the Steelers going forward. So James Conner, he could end up walking away from Pittsburgh and joining another team in free agency in the next season or two. So I think J.K. Dobbins will be a nice replacement. And also, I really like J.K. Dobbins' ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. Now, he's not an exceptional pass catcher out of the backfield. I think he could use a little bit more polish in that department. But, I mean, overall, I really like J.K. Dobbins as a halfback. I mean, great balance, very hard to bring down. So I think he'll be a good pick for the Steelers in the second round with their first pick of the draft. With the third round pick that the Steelers have them selecting defensive tackle Laurel Murchison out of NC State. Now, Laurel Murchison reminds me a lot of Javon Hargrave. This dude, for some reason, is really good when it comes to pass rushing situations. So for the Steelers, they could bring him in. He could be a guy who comes in on third downs or second and long or on passing downs and things like that when teams are looking to push the ball downfield. And he could be really good. I mean, this guy was really disruptive for NC State. In my opinion, I mean, he had a very quick burst. As soon as the ball snaps, it's like he's immediately on it. Like he's immediately in the backfield, getting a lot of chaos and things like that. A lot of tackles for loss. And he just reminds me a lot of Javon Hargrave, because when you think about what Javon Hargrave did for the Steelers, it didn't really always show up in the stat sheet. Like Javon Hargrave was really disruptive up front for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not just as a pass rusher, like he improved a lot as a pass rusher, but I mean, he was just always in the backfield, always making plays, and it didn't always show up in the stat sheet. Sometimes he was setting up other guys on the defensive line for plays in the backfield for sacks and tackles for loss and things like that. But I think this guy is a great replacement for Javon Hargrave. Now, I'm not saying he's going to come and have a big impact right away. Obviously, he's going to need a little bit of development, but I think if the Steelers are able to get him in on third downs and second downs on basically obvious passing situations and let him do his work as a pass rusher, I think he could be a really good fit for the Steelers. With the fourth round pick, I have the Steelers taking linebacker out of LSU, Michael Divinity. Now, Michael Divinity is really versatile. He can play outside linebacker. He can play linebacker as well. A lot of people like him at outside linebacker. I think he'll be a good fit if the Steelers are not able to re-sign Bud Dupree to a long-term deal. I think Michael Divinity will be a really good pickup. Now, he did miss a lot of time this past season for LSU due to failed drug tests and things like that. So it's questions about his off-the-field concerns and things like that. But with the new CBA CBA that just passed. If this dude wants to smoke all the marijuana he wants, he should be able to do that with the new CBA. So I think Pittsburgh isn't really going to have a problem when it comes to the character issues. Most of the time when you get troubled players and they go to good organizations like the Steelers, you don't really see that much about them when it comes to off the field concerns. And I really like Michael Divinity because he's very versatile. I think the Steelers defense could use a little bit of versatility. It will help out the defense a lot. He's also a lot solid and he's a lot better in pass coverage than what Mark Barron was, in my opinion. So I mean, Michael Divinity would add some much needed versatility to the Steelers defense. It's a lot of ways the Steelers could use him. They could use him on nickel situations, dime situations. He can be an outside linebacker at times. Let him rush the passer. So I mean, I think he'll be a good pickup. And if Bud Dupree isn't able to come to a long-term deal with the Steelers and he ends up walking away next season, I think Michael Divinity will be a really nice addition to that Steelers defense. With the second fourth round pick that the Steelers have, the 135th overall pick, I have them selecting the offensive guard Ben Barth out of St. John's. Now, Ben Barth is a guy that a lot of people don't know about, but he was a guy who comes from a small school. He comes from St. John's, and he had a really good Senior Bowl. I mean, a lot of people had a lot of good reviews to say about him, and a lot of people aren't really taking notice, but he can also play outside tackle as well. But I really like him at that guard position, and he may be able to start right away. I don't really know. It just all depends how the offseason goes, how training camp goes, and the preseason goes. But I really think he has the potential to be a day one starter for the Steelers right away, man. I mean, this guy is really solid. Go back and watch this Senior Bowl footage, man. He was really solid when it came to pass blocking. He has really good agility as well in the open field for a guy of his size. So I mean, I really like him. I really think he could get drafted by the Steelers and end up being a day one starter right away, because I think this guy is really good. And with the departure of the Ramon Foster retiring in the offseason, the Steelers still, in my opinion, need to fill that hole of the offensive guard position. I know they picked up somebody in free agency, but I mean, I still think that with Ramon Foster retiring, I mean, it's wide open. And in the NFL, in today's NFL, I mean, no job is set in stone. So I really think this is a guy who would come in, be a good mid-round selection, and ends up starting day one for the Steelers. I really think he's that good and has that kind of talent. And a lot of people aren't really talking about him. With the 6th round selection that the Steelers have, I have them selecting edge rusher TREVON Hill out of the University of Miami. Now, I am a Miami Hurricane fan, and I was really disappointed with the season that TREVON Hill had. I mean, he only had like 4.5 sacks, and the year prior when he transferred, he came from Virginia Tech. I mean, this guy in just a couple of games had like 11.5 sacks. He was taking college football by storm, and a lot of people were really talking about him. They were really excited about him going into this season. Initially, a lot of people had him going late first, early second round before the college football season began, and he didn't live up to those expectations. So I expect him to be available for the Steelers around this time, around that 6th, 7th round. He may even go undrafted, but I think this is a guy who has a lot of potential. With Miami, that Miami team just underachieved on every aspect. The offense underachieved, the defense underachieved, in my opinion. So I think with TREVON Hill going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, needing the edge rusher, he could be a guy who could end up replacing Bud Dupree if the Steelers aren't able to get a long-term deal worked out with Bud Dupree. And TREVON Hill, man, I mean, this dude is really explosive off the edge. That's one of the biggest strengths of his. I mean, this guy has a quick first step, man. So I mean, this guy is a phenomenal pass rusher. When you look at the potential that he has the nice frame, he has nice size, he has good athleticism and quickness. So I mean, it's all about if the Steelers coaching staff is going to be able to develop him and get the most out of him. Because like we saw when he played for Virginia Tech, I believe he only played in 8 games when he played for Virginia Tech and had 11.5 sacks. So I mean, this guy has potential. He has the skill sets. The question is, can this Steelers coaching staff develop him and he can end up becoming a good edge rusher? Now, with the Steelers' last selection of the 2020 NFL Draft, I have them selecting wide receiver Isaiah Hodgins out of Oregon State. Now, this was a guy who had 1,100 receiving yards this past year for Oregon State. He was one of the most underrated receivers in college football. A lot of people didn't really talk about him. He's 6'4", 205 pounds, and I think he would be a good deep threat when it comes to the Steelers, because the Steelers have been looking for a physical wide receiver for the last couple of seasons, ever since Martavis Bryant left, who could really push the field and catch those 50-50 balls and could be a good red zone threat. And we were hoping that that could end up being the Sir Drops-A-Lot and Dante Moncrief last year, but that didn't end up working out because, I mean, dude dropped so many passes. I mean, dude had butterfingers for hands. So, I mean, I think that Isaiah Hodgins, this is a guy who the Steelers could bring in. He should be able to make the roster, and eventually, with a little bit of polish, he could end up becoming a really good receiver for the Steelers. And the Steelers have a really loaded wide receiving core, but I mean, at this point in the draft, in the 6th and 7th round, you're basically drafting for depth, and I think he could bring some depth, and eventually the Steelers could use him in a couple of red zone packages and get him involved that way. And then eventually, when he develops a little bit more as a route runner, then he could potentially push for one of the starting spots on that Steelers wide receiving position. But I mean, I think the Steelers could bring him in for a little bit of added depth, and he could be what Dante Moncrief wasn't. So this is it for my Pittsburgh Steelers 7th-round mock draft. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comment section down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos and content, and thanks for watching.